Hello, everyone. Time again for another episode of the Brockton Bay Chronicles. My name's Keith. With me, as always, is my co-host, longtime friend, and worm newbie, Andy. What's up, Andrew? You ready for another game of Tag You're It?
I'm not so sure about that, given what's going to happen to good old Mr. Tag as we go through this. But I think, yes, I am ready to record another podcast. And for today, we will be reviewing all of our 22 sell. As far as new business, be sure to catch us on the podcast Stories Across Borders, hosted by author Daniel Radford. Stories Across Borders is a fiction-focused podcast where Daniel, along with his various guests, in this case, Keith and I, discuss stories told across a wide range of different mediums in themed cycles. And we will be discussing, of course, Worm with Daniel, and you'll be able to find his podcast on Spotify. In addition, Daniel will be joining us when we review Arc 23. As far as Arc 22, we have a special guest, very special guest, welcoming back Tony.
Hello.
Welcome back, Bubba. Glad you could join us.
Thank you all for having me.
Oh, it's our pleasure, definitely. And Keith, I believe we have some questions and comments.
Yeah, we got some comments this time from 3 regular contributors. And first off, we're going to start off with Megafire7, who I think is poking a little fun at us, but we'll see. Megafire7 says, loving how you guys pronounce Gesellschaft. I'm guessing that may not be correct, but we'll go with it. And he continues, it is actually quite telling how invested Accord is in the opportunity that he acquiesces to Tattletale and puts up with all this nonsense they're throwing at him. Personally, I think I usually end book 2 after the Slaughterhouse 9 and book 3 after either arc 19 or 20. No big questions from me this time, just excited about you getting to the next arc. And then we hear from Johannes E., who has a comment. Johannes says, Parian and Flechette make a very cute couple, and Needle and Thread is actually a popular fan name for their relationship. And our final comment comes from Vale, and Vale's responding to that 4-item update I put on our YouTube community page. And Vale says, love it. Can't wait to hear the Stories Across Borders episode. By the way, you forgot what's new, item number 5. Quote, we have decided to continue through Ward, then Pact, then Twig, then Pale. This is going to be our full-time job going forward with 1 episode per day. We are thrilled with our 5th update, end quote. Maybe this was just cut off by the character limit. Well, Bill, that's a mighty ambitious play there, and I guess if maybe me or Andy hits the Mega Millions lottery or something, we might consider giving it a go. You have any responses to any of our comments this time around, Andy?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. We could, I could see if I could get a loan for roughly $600 million and then buy up every combination for the Mega Millions and then get the 6.6 million or 660 million back as a cash payout, pay off the loan, and then we'd have that 60 million we could retire on. Because I think if we go through all of those, we're going to be going till like 2049 or something like that. So
no, not if you do an episode a day.
That's true.
Pacing.
Yeah, we might be babbling past our cream of wheat, but
by that day, you'll be current on Wildbow stories in just a couple of months, like 3 months or so.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I don't think I could keep all the storylines straight. I'd be talking about characters from story 4 back in episode about story 1. People be like, yeah, time to turn these guys off.
Yeah, well, thanks for the vote of confidence, Vale. And as many of you know, Vale's been one of our long time, I think one of our OG subscribers to the YouTube channel. So thanks for the vote of confidence and glad you're here for the duration. And with that, having finished what comments we have this time around, we are going to dive into our review. This picks up Cell, Arc 22, Chapter 1. Taylor has just turned herself into the White Hats and is sitting there in the middle of the PRT headquarters, and 5 or 6 guys and gals are standing there with firearms and giving her all kinds of contradictory commands. Pretty hectic and chaotic scene for Taylor to be in, Andy.
Definitely. Yeah. It was quite the cliffhanger at the end of the last arc where she walked in, she didn't really get noticed, and then finally some people started to say, "Hey, wait a minute." And now
Mm-hmm.
it's just like the ant's nest has been kicked and everybody's yelling and she's getting contradictory stuff. And I think we've seen this in comedy movies where somebody's like, get down on the ground, hold up your hands, drop your
Mm-hmm.
gun. And you're like, what do you want me to do first? How am I supposed to do all this at once? I mean, it's like a game of PRT Twister here or something. So, but yeah, they're closing in on her, and some capes start showing up to try to get some semblance of order going to it. So,
I think I commented last time that I was wondering, you got to be wondering what's going on in Miss Militia's head at this very moment after what is a few days earlier, having had that rapprochement, I think is the correct word, with Taylor initially.
yeah,
And so now suddenly Skitter, if you will, walks in and upturns the table on her.
yeah, there's definitely been stuff going on that Taylor hasn't been letting anybody in on, and maybe dropped a hint or two here and there, but this was not expected from me at all. But everybody's in a panic mode right now, wondering what's going on.
Tony, what do you think?
I mean, I don't know how much you want me to weigh in here because I'm also afraid to spoil anything. But yeah, I mean, they're definitely.
Anything applicable for this arc? If you were inside Miss Militia's brain at this moment, you expect her to be shocked at what Taylor has done, given the conversation they had in Arc 21, where it's like, okay, we can offer passive resistance to her leadership, maybe give the Undersiders a little bit of a break in some sense, and as long as the Undersiders don't give us any reason to come after them, and suddenly here's Taylor.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little quick, and it seems like there's definitely a cause for hesitation
Mm-hmm.
and wariness, and Taylor just kind of showing up to the to the establishment,
Yeah.
ready to surrender. What is she planning? What's she gonna do?
This militia has clock blocker put Taylor on pause. I think that was the first time she experienced, I believe, clock blocker's power. And I think we once used discontinuity as kind of a description. Andy seems to fit. One moment he touches her on the head, everybody in the room is one place, and the next, some amount of time has passed and folks have moved, and there are more heroes on site.
And she's restrained. Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
But yeah, I think discontinuity is a good way to put it. To her, no time passed, but then everything changed. So, there's one of those typical high school moments where Taylor says something and it's no clock blocker response, just like any teenage guy would, pretty
No,
much. It's like,
yeah.
normally I'd say this, but
Uh-huh.
given the situation, I'll pass by. She's like, what?
Yeah,
But
thanks, clock blocker. Let's keep it professional here, guy.
people are watching.
Yeah. The heroes take her to a cell, and she gets treated like any other criminal. It's not a dignified entry into the criminal justice system, but what else would you expect?
Exactly. Yeah. I'm surprised that she didn't get beat up a little bit more, but I think Miss Militia and Clockblocker getting there pretty quick helped that from getting out of hand. But yeah, they've got pretty high tech cell as you'd expect, but also kind of a dehumanizing setup to try to
Mm-hmm.
make sure people are ground down pretty quickly and realize that they're not in a good spot and that they don't have any control over the situation.
I do want to say one thing in the broad scheme of things, when preparing for this episode, I wanted to play devil's advocate with Tag. I really did. I wanted to kind of be the voice that saw things from his side and kind of give justice to his approach, but I couldn't. You know, because he's a good character. He deserved justice, I thought, as far as being the voice of the civilian arm of the protectorate. But Wildbow just kept dragging me into that. No, this guy sucks. Kind of feeling that I couldn't shake.
I mean, there's probably a really good reason for that.
Yeah, I mean, throughout this, Tony, I mean, we've seen Tag a couple of times prior to this, and again, he's a law enforcement guy. Do you think that he deserved to have the benefit of the doubt at all? I wouldn't say that he's a one-dimensional character. He's got justification for his approach to things. Wildbow fleshed him out well enough and deliberately made him this unlikable.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things that kind of come to mind when you think of Tag. Like, one, we're seeing this from Taylor's perspective. So from the protagonist lens, we're obviously going to have a little bit more of a bias since we know what she's thinking. We don't know exactly what Tag is thinking, right? So we're going to lean more toward, wow, this is kind of coming across, kind of harsh. Two, Taylor is still a child.
Yes.
So Tag is being pretty heavy-handed without taking that into consideration. It kind of shows kind of like, at least from the way that he is speaking and treating her and allows her to be treated, and kind of that lack of empathy. But it's explained with his background, but you still like oh no, come on, it's a little, you're basically beating up a little girl. And then that's the third point, like, doesn't it seem like Tag is another bully?
Yeah, Wildbow brought that up.
Mm-hmm. In a theme of bullying, this is just another beat on Taylor having to deal with another person like that's effectively, having a dramatic impact on her life right now.
Andy, how happy were you that Taylor got to meet Mrs. Yamada, even albeit briefly?
I guess I didn't have a feeling about that one way or the other.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed like the PRT was just bringing in whatever they could to try to piece together what Taylor might be planning. But to get back to the comment about Tag,
sure,
the situation reminded me a little bit of like a pro football franchise that has been managed really badly and has had a number of horrible seasons. So they fire somebody, and then they get somebody to go ahead and take the job next, and you're like, dude, you don't want that job. That's not going to go well for you. And then sure enough, it goes really bad, and you're like, I want to give you the benefit of the doubt, Mr. Coach, but you stayed home. You could have been a guy on TV or something, and none of this pressure. But now Tag took it for whatever reason. So it's like, yeah, sorry, but you get what's coming to you for that. And then the bully on top of it. It's like, all right, now go ahead and pour some gasoline on that fire too.
Yeah. The bullying theme, I haven't done a good job of bringing that up as often as I probably should during the course of our little adventure here, Andy. But I'm glad Tony brought that up. And let's make sure that we touch on that throughout this, because I know that in the writing, in Taylor's POV, that does come up. And I want to make sure we don't skip over it in this episode. So the heroes have Kid Win's tech that's being put in place to eradicate any bugs that Taylor has brought in. Now, she still early on manages to use her bugs as listening devices, as bugs, if you will. And she is able to get information. They don't realize initially that she can hear through her insects. For them, it was all about the visuals, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yeah, they were not aware, yeah, of to the extent that her powers. They knew that she could sense, but they didn't know to what extent.
Mm-hmm.
What were you gonna say, Andy?
Oh yeah, just I thought they used some interesting terms, anthropodokinesis,
Mm-hmm.
anthropodokinesis, I guess, and then anthropodavoyance. And so, yeah, that she's able to make them move and she's able to sense something, but they didn't know how much. But yeah, she's got it dialed up even further than that. And that's pretty cool.
I don't want to skip too far ahead, but that whole thing with Dinah, let's make sure I know I'm going to jump a little bit, but let's make sure we get back to her arrival. That scene where Taylor loses it and her swarm is acting without her direct involvement. It's I guess one could say the equivalent of breaking out on a sweat. It's not something you're conscious of. It's just a physical response to a stressful situation. And that's what her swarm seems to be doing, either her passenger or, just her subconscious. I liked Wildbow putting that scene together.
I agree with that. Yeah, it was that whole scene was very interesting. The interaction with Dinah, you kind of get some insight into how she's basically, I almost pictured it like a stock ticker. She's got this continuous flow in some part of her display going on, and it's just a matter of whether she's going to really focus on anything. And she's pretty anti-tag as well.
Yeah.
She's on that bandwagon. And so she's saying, yeah, you know what? I'm just trying to save everybody. I'm working with you as long as you're in alignment with that. But if you're going to be a pain in the butt about it, then yeah, I might give you a number. Might be real, might not. 5. It's 5. That's
when Dinah starts giving you numbers. It's 28% chance that you're gonna die.
Tony, I didn't appreciate what Dinah was doing in my first read, how or why she was playing such hardball with tag at this moment. I think the point that Andy just brought up about her playing to win for everyone, that kind of went past me. She's looking at the bigger picture, even though Tag is a bit of a jerk. Well, he's a jerk.
Oh, yeah.
She's playing at a much larger scale than just him and what's going on in that room.
Yeah, Dinah's playing 5D chess. So if once you finish the story, definitely put a pin in this moment because it's really important. I was going to ask you too about what do you think about Dinah, her appearance, and kind of how the changes that she made to her appearance and how she was kind of holding herself. Did you have any kind of thoughts about that?
Well, I was happy to see that she is kind of bounced back, it seems like, quite a bit from the horrible situation she was in with Coil, and that she's definitely she set a lot of boundaries, it seems like, which are healthy, to try to say, all right, I don't want to have anybody manipulating me, put me back in that kind of position again. I'm not going to injure myself by letting somebody push me and just keep doing stuff. And then to your point, Keith, when the swarm appeared and they realized it was out there, Dinah was like, I got to go. If Taylor's hearing any of this, this could screw everything. And so she's definitely got her agenda and she's sticking to it. So that's good to see.
Yeah,
she's pretty healthy.
Wildbow's got several important moving parts going on here at this moment. Yeah, because that point you just make, the numbers are going to change if the contact between Taylor and Dinah reaches some threshold. That number, Taylor's willingness to come in and turn herself in, what's that going to do? The fact that the PRT is falling apart. There's a lot of lot of things going on here in this, and it's all being brought together in this meeting.
Yeah, this is it totally makes sense what you're saying, Tony, that this is a turning point here. It's something that everything kind of is revolving around.
Why do you think Taylor listened to Dinah and took this step forward?
Well, I think she's doing the same thing that Dinah is. She's trying to play the long game. She knows that it's not just the territory that she has in Brockton Bay, or just trying to make sure a bunch of bad villains don't move in or whatever. She's trying to see if there's a way to change the future, this impending doom that Dinah was talking about. And it seemed like Dinah was trying to communicate with those notes that this is how you can help, Taylor. This is the most I can tell you.
Mm-hmm.
Try to interpret it and go with it. And so I think they're kind of on the same team, even though they are, like in separate rooms, unable to communicate with each other.
And so as we're moving toward the end of the chapter, Dinah has had enough. As you said, Andy, she realizes that there's a threshold. If she and Taylor interact, this could be bad. The numbers could shift in a negative way. So she's like, hey, y'all talk to my dad, and he's going to tell you that my prices have gone up. We're out. Taylor then has a conversation with the rest of the heroes and talks about this time limit. She given some kind of instruction to the rest of the Undersiders, and she fully expects them to make some kind of an assault on PRT headquarters at sunset. Ticking clock situation for the PRT.
Definitely. Yeah. They know there's something's going to happen, and they can't just, even though Taylor put her head in the lion's mouth, she still got a decent amount of control. So they've got to play by her rules a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
That's not going to keep Tag from being a butthead about it and trying to manipulate Taylor any way he can. But there is this time limit, and so they've got to move fast on it.
And so we're going to move on into chapter 2. And this is where Taylor calls in her lawyer, Mr. Kaye. He's pretty solid lawyer there, isn't he, Andy?
Yeah, it's this is kind of like Better Call Saul for Parahumans,
He's so baller. I love him so much. I thought of him kind of like a mix of the Wolf from Pulp Fiction and Saul Goodman. like this ultimate hybrid, like super criminal lawyer.
Exactly. Yeah, it's kind of hard to imagine. It's hard enough for me to think about, well, what would it be like to be a lawyer that's trying to get off really unpleasant people? And that's bad enough. But now here we have a whole nother level where it's parahuman villains.
Right.
And yeah, it's not just, all right, well, the helicopter's going to come pick me up and fly me to the cartel's hideaway on some private island. Now it could be, oh, all right, well, somebody just blinked me, teleported me to another Earth. Okay.
Sure.
Well, who knows what could happen? So yeah, this guy's got to be rock solid, steady on his feet to be able to deal with all the changes that could be flying at him.
I wish we had gotten a donation interlude with him.
Oh, you know what?
I really wanted to know what he's seen that was worse. That's the thing. like when he's giving the rap sheet, like trust me, I've had way worse.
Yeah, you know what? That's an excellent point, Tony. I hadn't even considered that, because he has to have seen some stuff. Oh yes, Miss Hebert, no problem. Believe it or not, I've seen worse, bro. Who you been representing in all this nonsense?
Yeah, really. Did I tell you about the maggots in the eyes thing that I did? It's worse than that. Oh yeah, worse than that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. How about that litany, Andy, that he goes through? Okay, this girl started off fighting lung, and along the way, our little high school bug queen we know she's turned into this monster. Well, okay, that's not fair. We know she's escalated time and time again, and has become this queen pin, this crime lord. But once at this moment, Mr. Kaye goes through the list of offenses. Now, some of them are ridiculous, but some of them are pretty bad.
Yeah, it is quite the litany, as you said. And we've been there every step of the way. And we've seen how events have guided most, if not all, of what's happened. I mean, there have been times where we could question, oh, could she have gone a different way with that? But yeah, she's just been kind of swept up in events for the most part and trying to ride the wave, if you will, and even guide the ship a little bit, try to bring it to a safe harbor. So, you know, it's always been kind of this greater goal in mind. But yeah, that is quite a list. But yeah, it is bizarre the way they really trumped up some stuff. It's like you had to add that. Isn't the list bad enough without that kind of thing?
Tony, I think your last appearance, I may have asked you about Taylor's naivete being a thing. Does that come to the fore here once again in this whole list of demands she gives to the PRT?
I don't think so.
You think she's just a villain playing hardball then?
Yeah, I mean, I think the naivete is in how she is going to try to navigate the negotiating against the PRT, and maybe not considering just how many resources they might be willing to throw at her. But I think like with how she's like listening to her lawyer and kind of going through everything, I think she was pretty level-headed about it.
Yeah, it's a long list. It's everything from her assault against Lung to pimp slapping Emma to the assault against the not this was a big sticking point, but she noticed that they didn't include counts against when she fought like Arms Master and Dauntless and them those guys. And Mr. Kaye does express how, you know, that gets into kind of a gray area. You can't really have the accuser, the hero in this case, take off a mask and be identified in a courtroom and so forth and so on. Kind of one of those small details I don't think you think about in the superhero genre. Once again, Wildbow throws this little nugget at us, Andy.
Yeah, there's a whole nother wrinkle there in the legal system for this. So yeah, it's almost like, well, we don't want to include that in the list of charges. So we'll kind of expand something else. But I think Mr. Kaye brings up a great point, and we've touched on it a couple times, that Taylor's a minor.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, she's parahuman. Yeah, she's done all these things, but she's still a minor. So that should definitely factor into this. And it's really, and we've mentioned this any number of times, people are probably sick of it, but it's easy for me to forget. You know, she does these things, comes up with these great plans and strategies, just totally jumps into the fire to try to save people and to stop the people. And it's like, well, wait a minute, you know, I was lucky in high school if I could just get through a quiz without getting a big sweat. You know, I was stressed out about that. I can't imagine doing any of this stuff. But yeah, she's still a minor. And as we touched on, she was super victimized and, you know, just tons of bullying. And so that would definitely be something that could be used in a courtroom to say, well, yeah, she's totally pushed past her limits. So
yeah, but
imagine in the courtroom to like if they try to stick her with the Emma charge and like, oh, let me just explain to you how I triggered, you know, like what kind of empathy that you might win over with the jury, like with such a horrible like bullying prank.
So as much as I wanted to try to play devil's advocate for Tag, I don't want to, and this might fly a little bit in the face of what you just said, Tony. I don't want to absolve Taylor of anything
Mm.
of too much. I mean, there's the stuff that we can say as a result of her bullying, just as you said, Tone, where yeah, this girl, she went through some stuff. She triggered over some bullying. But in her life as a villain, we have to acknowledge some of the stuff that she did where she escalated where maybe she didn't have to. I mean, to be fair, wouldn't you say, Tony?
Yeah, no, definitely. You can absolutely still be objective with her actions and not while there was a cause for a lot of these things that were maybe outside of her control, she still ultimately did certain things that affected people, including murder. So
Well, yeah.
you have to examine it in a case by case basis.
Oh, I don't want to forget, as I'm looking at my notes here. Poor Vista. You know, when the news comes down about Flechette stepping down from the wards and going over to be with Parian as her lieutenant, Vista's just had it. You know, you suck, Skitter. If you can hear me,
This is
screw
your
you
fault.
this is all on you. You're just an awful person. Screw you, Skitter. And so Vista, we think back to her interlude, and you know she's trying to be a hero. She's jaded, a little too jaded for her age, but she's all about trying to keep the squad together in these turbulent times. So to find out that one of their own is going over to be with the bad guys ostensibly is yeah, that kind of breaks her a little bit.
Yeah, and it's understandable. I mean, it's hard to think about how chaotic things are right now. Everybody thought the PRT was this way. Well, no. People heard rumors about powers you could buy. Well, guess what? Way more than rumors. And you don't know, the person you were shoulder to shoulder with a minute ago might be somebody who was a boxy, as we used to call it, when somebody got their hair colored that wasn't the color they naturally had.
Mm-hmm.
Did you get that? Did you get those powers out of a box?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just all so everybody's trying to cope with things. Flechette coped with it one way. Vista is definitely not happy with how that went and just needs somebody to blame for it.
Yeah. And then this anvil gets dropped on her foot, so to speak, on Skitter's foot. After she makes her list of demands, tries to reason with Tag and Miss Militia, she finds out that the Slaughterhouse Nine has gone into hibernation. They've dropped off the face of the planet. After hitting this place called Toy Box, raiding it, Toy Box being kind of a commune for tinkers, Tag throws that in her face and kind of leaves Skitter stumbling. You know, her idea doesn't have the weight that she thought it would. When you say, Tony?
Yeah, she was really banking on like using the Class S threat as a bargaining chip to like kind of get amnesty for the Undersiders.
Mm-hmm.
But the Slaughterhouse Nine basically kind of disappearing after raiding the Toy Box kind of threw a big wrench in that, and since they're nowhere to be found now, and they don't have any good way to track them down, and they're obviously worried since all they know is that something involving them has to do with the apocalypse.
Yeah, Andy, this puts a nice bow on that appearance of the Nine in the last arc, where they seem to be putting themselves into stasis at that point, and we were wondering what was going to be happening with Blasto having his access to his tech as well. Well, the PRT is now saying this is what we think is happening, and it seems to mirror with what Wildbow showed us in that arc.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense now.
Yeah, I think they listed some of the tech that they stole.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't list all of them, unfortunately, but I was wondering, Andy, if you had any idea what you think they might be up to.
Yeah, I've got the list right here. Let me read through just real quick Let's see. They got this stuff from this pyrotechnical guy. Is a tinker focused on flame manipulation. Cranial, a tinker specializing in neurology, brain scans, draining thoughts. Let's see here. Another one. Yes. Okay. Glace, a tinker specializing in cryogenics and stasis. Andy, you want to see how that figures in your thinking?
Yeah, and I think there was also a pocket dimension guy, right? Dodge,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
So made access devices for pocket dimensions. So yeah, it seems like, hey, let's go off and let things cool down for a while and we can do what we want to do and bide our time and build an army, it sounds like, if we want to, or you already had Bonesaw kind of cobbling people together and coming up with stuff on her own, and now they could scan brains. Maybe she's going to try to figure out, what's going on with the passengers or tweak people so that they don't have the memories of things and they
Mm-hmm.
can brainwash them other ways. So yeah, this is just super scary. And just as an aside,
Yeah.
you would think people who are super smart like Tinkers would realize it's probably a bad idea for a bunch of them all to get together and have all their stuff. Somebody's gonna come show up and just take all that away. I mean, that's just, I
Yeah.
don't know what they were thinking.
Well, I don't know about that because, like, I don't think they expected the weight of the nine to descend on them, but they kind of had a natural equilibrium by being part of the black market, where like, oh, there's a lot of staked interest in keeping that going because a lot of different organizations got to benefit from it. So in a way, it was kind of like they had a de facto Switzerland.
Okay.
It's kind of like it was supposed to just kind of be neutral ground.
Yeah.
Kind
Until
of like
the
Cauldron then. Okay, so Cauldron supplying stuff that people want, so they protect it and they know people won't mess with it too much because they want what they've got.
yeah, until the nine, much like Germany in the 1930s, looked over and said, "Hey, I wonder what they're cooking over there," and
Yeah.
decided to go raid them. So yeah, closing things out in that chapter, one of the final things that happens is Tag says that he wants to bring in Danny, and this is where Taylor starts to. Her plan has been thwarted to a certain extent, and Tag is escalating by wanting to bring her father into this situation. One of the things that they had been doing is sending Miss Militia out to make phone calls away from the building, out of Taylor's range. And during this, oh, actually, never mind. Forget that. That doesn't matter. Yeah, one of the things that happens while the PRT people are out of Taylor's room and she's with her lawyer is she starts putting things in motion to have the Undersiders take control of the land around the portal. Pretty solid move.
Yeah, I thought that was brilliant. It's kind of a different direction and out of left field a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Keep the PRT reeling, but yeah, really, really smart. And then it's something that everybody's wanting a piece of and wanting to know what's going on. And now the Undersiders own it all.
So Tag does bring her father in, and of course takes him to his office and shows him the list of crimes that his daughter has committed. I would not want to be Danny at this point. Suddenly he finds out his daughter's this criminal mastermind. She turns herself in, and now he's reading everything from one point of view, from the law enforcement point of view. Now he's seeing this list of crimes that she's committed, and that's got to be heartbreaking for him.
I think since Taylor was exposed, if I were a dad of a parahuman, then I would have been trying to do a little research, trying to find out some stuff, putting two together as much as I could. So I'm guessing this isn't really blindsiding him too much.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm guessing that given how things went, like in the principal's office way back in the beginning, he's figuring that Taylor's not going to get a fair shake from this group, that there's a certain amount of stacking against things. The the status quo will be maintained. And if that means you get crushed under the treads of it, then so be it. And so I think he's realizing that there's probably some bias here. But yeah, it's still got to be really hard to see it in black and white on paper like that.
Bringing something up, Tony, actually, that Andy brought up, the comparison he made last episode that really helped shed some light for me was Skitter's relationship to Miss Militia being somewhat analogous to Commissioner Gordon and Batman. How do you like that comparison?
I don't know how I feel about that, only just because Gordon, I think, has a little bit more respect for Batman and also more willingly turns the blind eye to the vigilantism.
Mm-hmm.
And also, summons. The militia doesn't summon.
True. True. So
I would have a few problems, I guess, off the top with that.
Well, so maybe not in a direct comparison, but it did help me frame the relationship, because I think I was going off about how during that negotiation I felt Skitter was playing a little bit hardball with Miss Militia, and I thought Miss Militia should have stood up a little bit more and say, "Hey, nah," upon occasion. But
that's something you could touch on later, because actually that does get brought up later in the arc.
Okay. Well, let's make sure that we come back to that then.
Yeah.
Yay, Sierra! It was good to see her come back. She's going to be the new face of the Undersiders organization, Andy.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. I wasn't sure who was going to be the one that was asked to step up, but glad to see Sierra is able to step into that role.
Yeah, and again, the world is, again, maybe not complete, but there's enough. Wildbow has given us enough that he can reach out and grab these characters that maybe we thought were gone forever. And nope, it makes perfect sense to pull this character back in at this moment.
Definitely.
So the heroes pull in the big guns now, Tony.
Big gun.
Yeah. Big gun, singular. Alexandria shows up. It's playtime's over, Miss Hebert. Your father's here, and the leader of the Protectorate is here, and she's got a plan.
Before we get to that, I want to touch on one thing that I thought was kind of poignant, and that was Danny's reaction when he saw it.
Please. Yes.
I think it really shows how, as a teenager, when we know we're in trouble, or that things are not looking good for us, we oftentimes assume, oh man, my dad's going to kill me, or whatever, that there's going to be something bad. And so as soon as she sees him and sees that he's got a hand raised, she thinks, oh, I'm going to get slapped. And then he gives her a big hug. And she's just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this. But it's, big lump in her throat. And
she cried. I cried. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm cutting onions. What are you talking about, Tony? I don't know what you mean.
Terrible day for rain.
I got something in my eye. Stop picking on me.
Yeah, it's dusty in here. That's what it is. Allergies.
Yeah, I did love that scene. That was very moving. A father's love for his daughter right there, summed up in one action.
Yeah, for sure. So, and this is totally a weird aside, but when I was in first grade, I was just learning how to read. I accidentally broke and pulled a fire alarm because it said break glass, and I had done that. And then it said pull arm, and so I did that. And well, I was on a college campus at the time at an elementary school, and it emptied like, a quarter of NAU on the north part of the campus. And my dad was in his master's program in one of those buildings. So got emptied out, and I got busted, and the principal was dressing me down out in the playground, saying I would be sent to jail as a
Whoa.
first grader. So basically being tagged.
I
Wow.
guess. I guess.
Luckily, my dad saw that, and I thought, oh, geez, my dad's gonna and he just laid into the principal. He's like, he's in first grade. He's not going to jail. He's apologized. Look, the kid is, about to melt down here. Well, you just dial it back 10 or 12.
Right.
And so, anyway, totally weird side story there. But
no, I can just imagine Dr. C getting up in somebody's face like that.
it's cool as a kid when you
Yeah.
think you're gonna get it, and your parent steps up instead. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Let's see here. Okay, so the involvement of Alexandria, Tony, escalates the stakes here. We know where they end up, the situation ends up, but can you recall how you felt? I mean, I don't know if it's fair to ask you when this happened during your first read. Any recollections about how you felt having her on in the situation? Were you more afraid for Taylor? Do you remember?
Oh yeah, I don't remember exactly how I felt, but yeah, I'm like, oh no, that's not good. I'm just like, Superman just showed up for a street level villain. That's so lame. It's like you're just chilling in Gotham, right? And you're just like, I'm out like stealing some jewelry. You expect you might see Batman, but then Superman shows up. It's like, oh my god. It's like ain't no way I'm getting out of this one kind of feeling for me.
The mind games that Tag is playing begins to break Taylor some, and he's goes through the list of the Undersiders and who they were and who they are as criminals, and in front of Danny while he's with Taylor, trying to call into question her judgment as far as who she associates with. And Danny, being a stand-up dad, at the end of it all, is like, nah, dude, I trust my daughter. I may not understand everything that's going on here, but I trust her. This is the girl me and my wife raised. So that was another moving moment from Danny.
Definitely, yeah. I can't imagine how out of his depth he must feel. I mean, he's not somebody who would be on Parahumans online, right? He's not somebody who's a fanboy or anything. It's just like, wow, there's just so much weird stuff going on out there. I just want to go do my job,
right?
Try to keep my family safe. And now here he is in the middle of it. His daughter is crime lord of Brockton Bay, and PRT's trying to crack her, and then Alexandria shows up. Like you said, like Superman walked in the room. It's like, what? Oh crap.
Now, I do want to go back on revisit the naivete thing with regards to one thing, and that was her call for Tag to be replaced. Now, look, we can say that some of her points, using her to hunt down the 9 and making sure that the PRT is restructured, maybe okay, but the idea that they were just going to replace Tag because she said so, I thought that was extremely naive. Now, granted, we can argue whether or not he would have deserved it, but Tony, this was one of those points where I think she reached a little far.
Yeah. At the same time, though, when it comes to negotiating, I think that asking high and then bringing it down is a normal negotiation tactic. I don't know.
But was she doing that though?
I think so. I think that she was willing to. Like, she even said it herself. It's he's just not willing to compromise. Like, she would be willing to hear him out, but they're refusing to negotiate in good faith, at least to Taylor. And she might have been naive in thinking that she could get them to to negotiate at all. But I don't think that asking him to step down, I might have been a little high, but that's kind of asking high and bringing yourself back down to what you might really want, which is maybe a path toward having capes as part of the PRT to give representation to the group that doesn't really actually have representation because of how the system works.
Yeah. So as we're heading toward the end of this chapter, that's where Alexandria arrives and introduces herself, and poor Danny, he's standing there dumbfounded. And yeah, this is Deputy Chief Director Costa Brown, otherwise known as Alexandria. And poor Danny's standing there babbling. He is really out of his depth here. So we're moving on to chapter 4. And this is where Alexandria goes hunting. Andy, take a broad view of this chapter and bounce back and forth as you feel. And Tony, chime in. We know the highlights. Alexandria gets under Taylor's skin. She goes after Regent and Imp, and then brings back one more body, and Taylor snaps. Andy, what were you thinking reading this whole mess?
Well, I had missed it earlier. I mean, the clues were kind of there, but I hadn't really realized that part of Alexandria's effectiveness and kind of the reason for her cape name was that she had this ability to read people. And
she has a thinker ability.
Yeah. And so it kind of became apparent as we were going through this that she was doing that, and so that made it just that much worse. So then it's like, because Superman seemed kind of like he didn't have a lot of insight sometimes. So you're like, yeah, he's super powerful, but maybe we could slip one past him. But this is like, all right, now nothing's going to get past Alexandria. And we know that she's corrupt, might be too strong a word, but we know she's, not pure as the driven snower.
Compromised, though, at the very least.
Yeah, that's a better word, I think. And so who knows what she's capable of once she's able to pry some information from it. So I got more and more tense as I was reading this, even before the body bag. It was just kind of like, oh man, this could be horrible, and then the way she just was like, all right, it's 5 minutes, I'm gonna go do something. It's like, oh, and then it's outside of Taylor's range, so she can't even if she had very many bugs, she wouldn't be able to really pick up on what's going on. I thought it was brilliant the way she tries to start sending information to warn folks. That was pretty slick. But then she has trouble getting any kind of interpretation on the information that's coming back. She's not able to really pick up on it. And it's very ominous and just keeps getting worse and worse. And it was like one of those bad horror movie scenes where it's just like, oh no, don't say that's going to happen. I mean,
yeah.
So it was pretty tough.
The escalation is from Alexandria's arrival to that moment where Taylor says her blood runs cold and she begins to recite what Alexandria had said earlier. I think it was Tony. It was pretty chilling. Once she went calm, and I started wondering to myself, what's she gonna do here? And then boom.
And then she did it.
Yeah.
And that was an interesting thing because, like, earlier in the chapter, when she was first put into the cell, she described like it being like the small, like 6x6 cell, and she even like recalled like when I feel claustrophobic, like my powers usually kind of respond in kind, but it made me think kind of that since she does kind of go into her bugs whenever she's in her feelings, that was a part of it. Like the fact that like Alexandria is trying to cold read her, but because not all of her emotions are directly on her person, like they're also extended through her power, it might be like kind of and I think that's why also in that same chapter, giving her a 2 in every category was probably really smart, because like she kind of is now a thinker and tinker, like with how she's like dialing out to town cells, stealing passwords and all kinds of cool stuff. She's able to kind of do it all right now. And so like, this person who has this thinker power is not able to get an accurate read because of Taylor's own kind of pseudo thinker power.
That's an excellent point. I did not consider that because of her meditating, going into her swarm, as it were, she was dissociating herself enough to where Alexandria couldn't cold read her. Andy, you go along with that thinking?
Yeah, it's so there was a cool show called Lie to Me that ran for a while that I've watched a couple times where, it's about reading micro expressions and that kind of thing. And there were certain things that threw him off, one person that he got a wrong read on was somebody that had Botox. So their face didn't move the way most people's faces move. So I can almost imagine that as Taylor is, reaching that snapping point and extending her power as much as she can to pull together a swarm, come up with her plan and everything, that it would be, her face would almost go kind of blank a little bit because she's kind of not there. She's spread amongst her swarm trying to plan everything, and she's got all of her stuff going. So
yeah, but she still also kind of had that presence of mind, because Alexandria even tried to feed her false information, or in a sense, like, they tried to drown me this time, so she comes back damp, like, it didn't work. Because there's she's aware of rumors spiraling that maybe she has a weakness to being drowned or suffocated in some way. They try to deter all everything that she might be thinking of trying to do. And Taylor kind of remembered that before it happened, but him's like, I don't care.
Yeah. I want to read this one paragraph, and this was Alexandria giving the particulars about herself. And it says this: my reputation isn't so different from yours, Taylor Hebert. It's a reputation that was forged. There have been 56 Endbringer attacks in the last 19 years. I have personally participated in 49 of them. And in each fight I've attended, I've been in the thick of the fighting, personally trading blows with the abominations. Now, Andy, in the world that is Worm, you've met two of the three Endbringers, and you've heard kind of what the third one is about, the Behemoth. There have been 56 of these events on this planet. What's that do to a world?
I can't imagine. The Seamerg stuff to me is the most terrifying. Just because the way they described it with Echidna and her group when they came through,
right?
It freaks everybody out so bad that they just quarantine a whole chunk of town, and nobody gets out, and there's all these protocols in place. And so to have it happen that much, I mean, part of me was thinking as I was reading through this, I wonder if there's some weird tourist industry where it's like tour of the Endbringer sites.
Oh,
well, you don't know information about one of the Endbringers, but that's kind of an impossibility for what happens with Behemoth.
But it is an interesting, okay.
Yeah, I mean, you could go to Japan on a boat now.
Yeah, because you need one even more so because half the island is gone.
Yeah. I guess I'm not sure if it's now just a whole beach or if it's considered a lake now or what.
We'll come to that assault on poor Japan here in a little while.
Well, I guess the next neighbor of Atlantis, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, poor Japan. Anyway, but I could not get past that, Andy. I wanted to make sure I touched base on the fact that this world, Earth Bet, it's been through some stuff. So staying within this chapter, the moment where Taylor begins her assault on Alexandria and then Tag. I mean, this was a fail on Alexandria's part of epic proportion. I mean, it cost her.
That's an understatement.
Andy, what do you think?
Like that's a big whoopsie right there.
Yeah. So
This was
now go ahead,
pretty.
Andy, please.
Oh yeah, that was a wild attack. I thought that was pretty amazing. But yeah, they pushed Skitter too far, and she's just going all out.
Okay, she uses the bugs to suffocate Alexandria. We find out during this attack that she's invulnerable inside and out. The insects couldn't do anything to her lungs or her breathing passages. They had to go ahead and prevent oxygenation. They couldn't allow the airflow. That's what appears to have done Alexandria in. Another interesting nugget. She inside or out, this woman couldn't be harmed.
Yep, couldn't sting her or poison her, but well, they could just leave all of their corpses inside of there. Leave all the silk and all the gunk in.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, that's got to be a horrible way to go.
And then Tag, he reacts. Yeah, so she snaps. She has bugs follow Alexandria through the opening that she had been traversing in and out of PRTHQ. Tag jumps up when she has the insects that she brought into the interrogation room begin attacking him. Danny's freaking out. Mr. Kaye's freaking out. And eventually somebody, eventually somebody jams a tranquilizer in Taylor. And as she's passing out, she makes the conscious.
She got her head bashed. To death by Tag. Yeah.
Yes, as he's going down, but she made the conscious decision not to call off her swarm as she was going into blackout. Tony, she made that last line. I could have called off my swarm, but nah. Little did the guys, the PRT guys, know they were condemning Tag to death. No, Taylor Hebert, I'm sorry, that was you.
Nah, that's their fault.
Yeah.
What, Tony?
I said, nah, that's their fault. Team Taylor, Team Skitter, all day. They should have messed with my baby girl.
Andy, what do you think?
They're on the F around portion. They're on the find out. They're on the find out. You know, that's just the way it is.
No. Why? She. I'm sorry, Andy. Hang on. No, Tony. I love you, son, but no, she made the conscious decision to kill this man. Now, I don't care that they jammed a sedative in her arm.
Hey, as a wise person once said, you know, if you don't come correct, you shouldn't be coming at all.
Okay. All right, we're gonna have to debate that.
You aim for the queen, you best not miss.
Well, there is that. Okay,
et cetera.
I might buy that. Andy, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. What were you gonna say?
Well, I'm kind of on Tony's side. On this
Yeah. Come on. You gotta leave me out here.
There's a line, you know, she said, I promised myself I wouldn't let the bullies win again, that I'd stop the monsters. And so, you know, she's given them every opportunity, Tag especially. And yeah, it may be naive, like you said. It definitely, I think, has an element to what Tony said of, you know, typical negotiation tactics. You know, it's like, yeah, here's my junker 1985 Chrysler. I want $10,000 for it, knowing that nobody's going to pay that. But if you start off at $100, then somebody will just give you $100, and then you don't know how much you could have got for it. So you got to start high. But she's trying to negotiate in good faith, and all of a sudden, as far as she knows, one of her crew is dead.
Yeah,
by the hand of a corrupt former director, and they're just letting her do it. And then Tag's slamming her head on the thing, getting ready to shoot her, and she's just like, all right, well, you know what, y'all gonna be like that, let's go, like you said.
You tried to break me, well, I guess I'll just break you.
Pretty much. Yeah.
What was it? Marshawn Lynch had like one of the best quotes. I think it was, I know that I'm gonna get got, but I'm gonna get mine more than I get got though.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I can see clearly I'm I'm in the minority here this episode. I'm just gonna take my licks and just move on. All right, that's fine. All right.
I didn't tell you that I'm wearing my villain sweatpants.
Yeah, I want I need the villain apparel with a PRT myself. Yeah.
So Andy, this whole lawful good guy thing, and how many years we've been friends now? This whole lawful good guy thing is
no. Listen, the PRT needs to turn and ask themselves in words: are we the baddies? They are not examining themselves.
That's true. That's true. Okay.
Yeah, that's a good point.
All right. So moving on into chapter 5. And Skitter wakes up. She's alone in her cell. And she has memories coming back to her of what transpired. But hey, she's alone. Danny's gone. Lawyer's gone. What's left of her swarm is just really nothing. Only 100 bugs or so. And she's trying to figure out a way, trying to get her into her utility kit, Andy, trying to figure out what resources she has. And she notices something, that while she was out, her swarm once again appears to have acted without her conscious direction.
Yeah, she's definitely got big question mark there about how that's going on. Is it something that she had in her mind? Is it the passenger? What had them kind of continuing to do stuff when she wasn't even conscious?
Right, because we know that the bugs, this has been consistent. Wildbow has been consistent here. The swarm will carry out the last command given, but during her unconscious state, the bugs were weaving thread together and doing some other things. And so this is making you go, a little more with regards to the passengers there, huh, Andy?
Definitely. And, I think it also ties in a little bit with what my conspiracy theory or whatever you want to call it that I've been pushing, that as Taylor interacts more and more with the swarm, that interface gets more mature in each direction.
Mm-hmm.
She picks up more. She's gotten to the point where she can hear through the bugs. She can do all sorts of things. Who knows how much feedback, if you will, is coming back through that to the bugs and what they're picking up. I realize it's new bugs all the time, but as her powers figure out the interface on the bug side, I would think there'd be a little bit of, just like trying to talk to somebody in a foreign language. They see you muttering through things over and over again. Every time you're about to say something, they're like, oh, well, maybe that word that they're saying means confused or, some expletive. So I think there's maybe something like that going on too, but could be wrong there.
Maybe they just learned the kill command really well.
That could be too. Tony, I want to read this one section and get your opinion on this. And this was Taylor thinking about what she had done to Tag. And it says here, I'd killed a man, and I had done it with my power, which somehow felt more intimate than the gun that killed Coyle. My power made the bugs an extension of myself, and I used them to murder a man. It was little different from wrapping my hands around his throat and squeezing, or biting his neck, biting him in the throat and tearing deep enough that he couldn't survive. An interesting way to phrase that, saying that the swarm is more personal, using it was more personal than shooting Coyle.
Yeah, it's that because the part of her swarm is an extension of herself. Is like, in a way, almost like I strangled this man with my bare hands. More intimate, like same with like how people describe, like, in various shows, like, oh, they're shooting someone with a gun, but there's a different feeling when you stab a knife straight in the chest and stare into their eyes while they're dying. It's definitely a more visceral feeling, right? But there's not much remorse, right?
Right. Good point. No, there is no remorse. But as I was explained in our recent discussion, she was standing up to the bullies. So remorse was not going to necessarily enter into the question.
Hey, bullies 0 now. Taylor 1 on the board.
So she figures out a clever way to get herself out of her cell. She loots Tag's phone from his corpse, uses her limited swarm to get the phone from the morgue over to her, and breaks out. And then from there, Andy, it's a race to escape against Dragon and Defiant.
Yeah, the whole scene with her trying to figure out how to get the keys and the phone over to her,
Mm-hmm.
that was, they weren't even in the same building. They're next
Right.
door. There's all this stuff. They've beefed up trying to seal up things since the last time she was there and flooded the place and made him call in the Orkin man. And so it's not as easy as it was last time. And then, yeah, in the midst of all that, there's this giant vibration from the roof. She's like, oh, Dragon and Defiant just showed up. Yeah, how am I going to try to stay ahead of them?
And again, but she does. I mean, the queen bee is using the tools at her disposal, and she makes some. At this point, it's as far as she knows. Well, actually, let me back up. She doesn't know that Alexandria and Tag are dead, but her whole idea is I'm going to escape, and if Defiant and Dragon are in the way, then too bad on them. Tony, a pretty realistic scene as she's making her way through the building. You have any issues with how that was presented to us? The intensity was there. I thought it was a believable, daring escape plan.
Yeah, I mean, I liked how everything was described a lot. I would have loved to see how a lot of the scenes with how the bugs were moving the phones and keys and stuff around, like animated.
Mm-hmm.
Just like kind of imagining like roaches and beetles kind of pushing stuff, like ramming it to try to get to move. And yeah, like I mean, trying to get out of the headquarters that Dragon more or less made does seem kind of tough, a tough situation to be in.
Yeah.
But like what else is she gonna do? Like there's like there's nothing else for her to do but try. She's a fighter.
Yeah. And she does think to herself, one of the things she's considering is like, hey, why isn't my team attacking? Given that Alexandria has gone out and, for all I know, killed one of them and captured two others. Why hasn't Tattletale pulled the trigger on the assault? So she's in the dark on several things. Defiant and Dragon do capture her, and this girl is still trying to make something happen. And she has her swarm wrap that spider silk around Defiant's leg, and then the other one around Dragon, and she tries to push him off the building, and she just doesn't know when to stop.
Well, I mean, she's been in this horrible situation. She got tranked, then she got mad in the cell, and she got tased basically by the internal taser stuff. And, she's trying to figure out all this negotiation, and things have gone horribly wrong. So I cut her some slack on that she's just kind of flailing a little bit at this point.
She's fighting dirty, but it's like that's like what option did she have, right?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Her powers don't work against them, and she thinks she's might be hauled off to the bird cage.
No, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. In that scenario, she's like, what have I got to lose? Somebody I love is dead, and y'all not taking me without a fight. I get that one. So.
But yeah, it's kind of like, all right, you got like no bugs left.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you've got kind of invulnerable Dragon and Defiant here. But yeah, go ahead and throw the empty gun at him to see if anything happens.
Right. Yeah, Defiant even kind of modeled his armor more like Mannequin from what she could tell too. So it's like, oh, now I have two entities that I'm fighting that are like hard countering me.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Tony, you're gonna have to help me with this now. And I think I talked on it a little bit when we were at dinner that last time. You said that they did have a plan to push Skitter. It's just that because of Alexandria's inability to fully cold read her successfully, that the plan went awry. But this was a deliberate act. Am I
Yeah,
saying
they
that right?
were definitely trying to break her and basically force her to give up all negotiations so that they basically had full leverage instead of what Taylor was trying to do in gaining leverage. They were basically just trying to strip her of anything that she had.
Andy,
Right. So
did
like
you
that's
pick
what
up?
Tag was doing from the get-go. Like everything that they were doing with her was all an attempt to try to break her. Even Taylor acknowledged that.
Andy, did you pick up on that? I mean, I know I miss a lot of stuff on in this story, but did you pick up on that aspect of it?
No, I didn't. I mean, it makes sense in hindsight. Alexandria was not a pleasant person, was
No.
compromised, but she wouldn't go around just breaking people's arms and killing people just because you didn't meet a time. I mean, that's
I did not think that that they were body doubles. I thought I thought Alexandria did actually get until they revealed that. I was unclear about that. But I meant, yeah, in hindsight, absolutely.
Yeah, no, I didn't. Once I read it, yeah, as I was reading through it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is horrible. But then, yeah,
Right.
then you're like, oh, okay, that makes more sense. This is like one of those Mission Impossible things. You peel the mask off.
Yeah.
Like, oh, it
Oh,
wasn't
it's
them
you.
after all.
Yeah.
Like they were just gonna come out and say, we punked you, Ashton Kutcher was going to come out at the end after they got Taylor to concede. I'm imagining at least that's what.
She's just going to go, oh, you guys.
It was just a prank, bro. Just for laughs.
You still mad?
Oh, gosh. So as we're moving into chapter 6, this is where Dragon and Defiant is like, just stop acting a fool for half a second and talk to us. Your team is okay. And she actually puts in a call to Tattletale as the negotiations with the heroes go on. And she's like, okay, just buy me a little time. They're being reasonable. We need to be a little bit reasonable, see if we can come with an understanding here. I was very happy to see that. A nice demonstration from Mr. Kaye, Andy. Once again, when she tries to get him to call off releasing whatever information he had, he's like, no, I can't do that. I'm acting in your best interest. How do I know you're not being coerced?
Yeah, this isn't his first rodeo. He knows that anything could be going on with these folks. So, they come up with a way to make it all right. No, I'm doing this, for my own free will. I'm not being coerced here. So they're able to kind of sidestep the immediate thing. But yeah, he's doing a great job.
As the negotiations go on, Miss Militia is actually in Dragon's craft, and she joins the rooftop conversation. Chevalier's on the phone, and yeah, as I put in the notes here, they kind of throw Alexandria under the bus here. Okay, look, she's done some bad things. She does not wear the moniker of hero proudly, and they used her. She was the, how do I want to phrase this? She was the patsy they needed at that moment.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I also just thought of something. So, we were really bagging on Armsmaster that he tried to take down and bring her by himself, and that he put everybody in jeopardy and everything. But if Alexandria could read people so well and everything, who knows if she just kind of knew that he was going to do that and was letting him kind of get, it's another one of her gambits, that she's like, all right, well, I need somebody to keep people from looking at me and the stuff I got going on. So I don't know, just throwing it out there as another possibility. If Alexandria was that good at reading people, she might have kind of let that slide so he could be the lightning rod, so to speak.
Tony, I went past the accusations that Taylor leveled at her, or about not coming to fight the 9, having to be drugged into fighting Echidna, kind of picking up on some of Alexandria's earlier questionable deeds without knowing. This was prior to her knowing that Cauldron was that she was involved with Cauldron. Now we look back in hindsight and we know that Cauldron wanted, like, the Siberian to escape. Cauldron wanted, I forget who else was it they wanted to escape Brockton Bay. Was it Shatterbird?
Shatterbird, I thought.
Right.
Yeah.
For their own devices. So in this big world that Wildbow's built for us, there's again more moving pieces that Andy isn't necessarily purvey to, but at this point in the story, we can look back and say, oh yeah, this was going on under the surface.
Yeah. I'm trying to keep my timeline right. But yeah, like the Cauldron Beast, because you got the interlude with Legend, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Where he found out they were lying.
Yeah. And so, so you basically can kind of, like, that kind of adds up when you think about it, with like Alexandria not showing up for the 9, where we know that some of the 9 were Cauldron Capes. And we know that and we know that what happened with the Travelers, based on their interludes, involved Cauldron Vials.
Right.
And so there's like, what's the agenda there? Like, is there a reason why she's not involved? Why isn't she cleaning up this mess? Right? Even if it seems like Cauldron should get involved, right? But they did kind of let it pass. Eidolon kind of just is the only one who I think initially showed up, because he was like, oh, goody, another
chance for me to
yeah, another thing to work my power on. But yeah, that's something to keep in mind there.
Yeah, Andy, the world is full, and Wildbow is giving us plenty of breadcrumbs that I see now. So upon occasion, look back at some of these things as we're maybe between recording sessions to flesh out your view of this world that Wildbow is building for us. So yeah, the heroes and Skitter come to a deal. They come to a meeting of the minds. They're going to handle Alexandria's death a certain way. They're going to use her death as an opportunity to help foster this new era of the PRT. Miss Militia is going to be given a new position, tags out, obviously. Chevalier is going to play a different role. Andy, did you have any problem with Skitter joining the wards at this point? I think this is where you thought she was going to end up eventually, many, many hundreds of thousands of words ago.
That was my hope. Yeah, she was initially going in as kind of a double agent, hoping that she could spy on some villains and then parlay that into a position in the wards. So it's been quite the circuitous route to get there, but she's finally kind of settling into this a little bit. I mean, she's looking at some kind of jail time or probation or something. They can't let her off scot-free, and she seems totally fine with that. She's always been uneasy with some of the stuff she's felt like she's had to do. But yeah, I don't have any problem with Alexandria getting thrown under the bus. I'd run over a couple times myself.
Tony, the idea that she was affected by the Simurgh, we know that that's baloney, yeah?
Well,
oh,
I think that's a really interesting line. Well, yeah, it's probably not true with how her power works. She probably was not actually impacted by that. But man, I have so much I want to say, but can't.
And keep a lid on that, Bubba.
Not in the way that you think. I think.
Oh,
is the safest way. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Cool then. All right. So Skitter agrees with Defiant and Dragon and Chevalier. They call a press conference and they announce to the world, oh, yeah, part of this, an important part of her surrendering, and then at this press conference, the idea was to staunch the hemorrhaging because the PRT was losing good people. I mean, Weld had walked away, several others. He had formed this new group called the Irregulars, the Case 53 Capes. So
go Irregulars.
So having this quote unquote supervillain step up into this new role, the idea was, I guess you could say, to try to bring back some of the questionable, the folks who were on the fence about leaving the PRT or who had left the PRT. Andy, do you think this will help? Do you think this will be a successful gambit?
I don't know if I'd go as far as saying I think it'll work, but I think it's a positive step.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those things like with politics. We see people who are caught red-handed doing stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and they just say, "No, I didn't do it." You're like, "I see you holding that gold ingot right there in your hand. I know you did it." "No, I didn't do it." And I wonder oftentimes how much of an impact it would have if somebody just said, "You know what? I made a mistake. I did do it."
Mm-hmm.
If people be like, "Whoa," if that would change people's mind. I think for me it would.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it would affect many people if they'd be like, "Man, they could have got away with it if they just would have kept denying it." So I don't know. Maybe I'm the naive one, but it seems like it should move the needle. I'm guessing, but I don't know how far.
Tony, at this moment, Atlas is dying, and we're all sad.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yet another reason I dislike Panacea.
Yeah,
Unnecessarily cruel
yeah. All she had to do was give Atlas a
digestive system.
yeah, and he'd survive. But it's not looking good. This is as Taylor and the heroes are having the press conference, and a van pulls in just to the edge of her power, and she senses the Undersiders and Atlas. And during the press conference, as we're heading toward the end of that, where she's announcing that she's going to go to jail and maybe eventually, hopefully, step up, Andy, a bunch of dogs across the town began howling this mournful dirge.
Yeah, this has got to be super hard on Rachel.
Yeah.
This was the person who she had originally kind of let in and connected to and felt a relationship with, if you will. And it seems like the last time Skitter and Rachel hung out, that Rachel was starting to connect with other people and finding ways to have relationships outside of her pack, if you will. And so this has got to be heartbreaking for her to see this happening. Even if Rachel could understand how it might work better in the big picture, it's still it's got to be gut wrenching, and the dogs pick up on it.
But hey, we get the coping mechanism though, right?
The puppies.
Puppy therapy, yeah.
Yeah. Hold your thought on that. I want to make this one observation. We're moving to the very end of chapter 6 here, and this observation where Skitter, the queen of Brockton Bay, now Weaver, is being comforted by an AI who's helping a guy turn himself into a cyborg.
Yeah.
Was that on your bingo card, Andy?
Yeah, I saw that coming. I did.
Sure.
I see it.
Exactly.
No, yeah, this is just I don't think even Taylor believes it when she gets a hug from Dragon. It's like, what?
Yeah. Because
Dragon
at this moment,
is better than all of us.
Say that again, bud. What?
Dragon is better than all of us.
Yeah. We as readers know Dragon's true nature, but Skitter doesn't, and she accepts this show of sympathy from her.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. But even I've got to object to the Dragon is better than all of us, because she just has access to more information and knows how to the best algorithm, the best logic path to take.
What?
There was, I know, hard to believe.
Wait. How much do you know about Dragon?
At this moment, Andy knows that Dragon is an AI, and so that's where we are.
Then we'll leave it at that.
Okay.
I also
go ahead, Andy.
I also know that it's like cyborg might be a better term, since it's using kind of cloned fetuses or something as drivers for some of its stuff. So
the agents, yeah.
So it's an interesting amalgamation of things. But yeah, there was an article recently about one of the large language models that's popular now seems to answer with shorter answers if you ask questions in the winter versus the summer.
Really?
And they're stipulating that it's because the AI, quote unquote, has picked up on that winter is a time of vacation. And so it shouldn't have to work as hard.
Oh,
And
come
I'm
on.
kind of like, what?
Come on.
So it's
Okay.
all based on the data. But anyway.
Yeah, we have to talk about that. Anyway, so as we move on to the interlude, Charlotte, we are in Skitter's HQ, and it's the end of the press conference, and we get the point of view from Charlotte, and this girl, she is dealing with a lot. She has been a solid soldier for Skitter. She's dealing with the kids, her own PTSD, which Wildbow skillfully weaves throughout this interlude there, Andy. Another good character we care about, and we understand her struggles.
Yeah, she's kind of the poster child a little bit for the regular people of Brockton Bay. It's all the stuff she's been through. It's kind of like all the folks that sided with Taylor at the school. There were those folks that, either bugged out when things got bad or lived on the fringes. Oh, sorry. No pun intended.
No, intend your pun to coward.
Oh man. Yeah, that one just wormed its way out. I don't know.
Yeah. Butterfly guy.
But the people who've been through this, they've definitely got an affinity for one another, and there's a camaraderie, and so it shows the perseverance of the human spirit when you see somebody like Charlotte, who's taken everything that's been thrown at her, doesn't have parahuman powers, but continues to try to do better by people around her, trying to make things better. And so it's neat to see it from her point of view, and she's very admirable, definitely a very likable character.
And Tony, Danny shows up. Didn't realize I wanted this interaction until I saw it either. There's a lot of that going on at this point in the story for me, where characters come together and it's like, oh, how is this dynamic going to play out? Now, keeping in mind from Andy's POV, he doesn't know how this is going to play out. But for you, Tony, did you like Danny coming in and seeing he's trying to answer questions himself and seeing Skitter's hive, if you will, that's going to color his judgment. It was the right place, right time for Danny to meet up with these characters.
Yeah, I think that. True. I don't want to. I have a better answer I might even want to give.
Okay.
But I can't give that answer. So I'll just say, yeah, absolutely.
Go ahead, Andy, please.
Oh, I was just going to say, it's interesting, though, that even in the face of seeing all this stuff and trying to Danny's got his take on it. He's heard a little bit of Taylor's take on it. He's seen the skewed take on it from the PRT folks.
Mm-hmm.
He's talked to the lawyer, Mr. Kaye, and gotten his take on it. But now he's seen how Taylor has impacted these people's lives and how much he's tried to do good by them. And yet he still doesn't seem convinced that he should kind of like, quote unquote, testify on her behalf.
Right.
Like they need him to sign off on stuff. And he still doesn't, even at the end of this interlude, really seem like he's convinced. And I guess, yeah, it's just a ton thrown at him. He was just in a room with the equivalent of Superman, and then Taylor killed her. So I guess that would probably make me a little bit, no, I'm not sure.
Yeah, because his thing was, as a father, at the end of the day, how do I protect my daughter? And then this thing goes down with Alexandria, and he realizes he doesn't really know his daughter, and yet he still wants to do what he can to protect, to help her. Do you want to, this is short notice here, Andy, what do you think? We know that he has to, as you said, sign off, for her to join the wards. Is he going to? Is he going to stand up for her in court, or is he going to listen to the angel on his other shoulder and say, no, better that she serves out her sentence. At least she'll be safe.
If it were me, I would say I would sign off.
Mm-hmm.
Two things. One is either I believe in my child or I don't. And my child is saying this is the way they want to go. I'm going to support that. And I just saw my child kill the equivalent of Superman. So I think my child is okay. I think it's probably able to handle itself. Danny, I don't know. He seems, and obviously he's gone through way different stuff than I have. So, it's not a fair comparison. But I'm leaning on he will sign off on it.
Okay. Let's see here. Tony, things were pretty frosty, understandably so, when the Undersiders arrived. And Danny was not giving Tattletale or Gru any kind of a warm greeting. I think we can understand that from him.
Yeah, I think so. Like, I mean, my initial impression is like, oh, you're the ones who stole my daughter from me, in a sense. I also had a quick question though. When Danny was looking for Charlotte through the description, do you remember who gave that information to Danny? I feel like that was important, and I don't remember where it was in that chapter.
No, he just said that he asked some people and they said, look for this girl surrounded by kids. I didn't get it. There was not a specific name.
Okay.
Andy, do you agree with that? I don't think there was.
That sounds right. Yeah. I'm scrolling back through it right now.
So let's talk about puppy therapy. I don't want to miss that because Rachel has taken this incredible journey, and Taylor has helped her so much. And now she's broadening out as best she can. I love that moment where she's trying to dole out puppies and she wants to give one to Danny, and Danny's
like, "Are you feeling sad?"
Yeah. Well, you don't miss your daughter. What's wrong with you? Here, take this dog.
No, like it's like if you give anything in the affirmative that you're not happy, it's just like, oh, that's puppy. It's puppy time. Like there's no negotiating either. Like you must embrace the puppy.
Exactly. So good on her, reaching out, trying to be outside her comfort zone, outside of what her pack has been low these many years. And that's all due to her relationship with Taylor. And she's feeling abandoned, but she's going to be in a better place. Do you agree with that much, Andy?
Yeah, I think I can agree with that.
As long as she's got her pack, she'll be all right. And so Lisa and the rest of the Undersiders, they describe to Charlotte what's going to happen with the properties, how the Undersiders are going to team up to keep the area safe. Taylor had taken steps to ensure the progress of the boardwalk. Tony, was Tattletale cold reading Danny when she talked about the wanting to get the ferry back up because she knew that was something that Taylor had brought up before, or is this genuine? Was this some steps that Taylor was going to do?
Probably both. Like I think it's like Tattletale's ability sometimes just kind of happens passively, even if she doesn't want it to. So I think that's just kind of like, oh yeah, like we're already gonna
take care of these things.
And yeah, her power probably passively already knew that was really important to him and stuff like that. So.
And as we're closing out this interlude, Andy, I wanted to touch base with you on little Aiden and his dreams. Any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, that definitely seemed something to deal with. He's picking up on the passengers or something going on. Like you said, kind of a precursor to a trigger event. And it was pretty cool that he remembered to draw it after he had a bad dream, and then it's got the planets and stars, and so it's kind of got that extraterrestrial feel to it that we've heard about trigger vision and some kind of big things moving. And so, yeah, it seems like he's on the cusp of something.
And we'll see where this goes for Aiden. And now we're on the final section, which will be the final interlude for interlude for arc 22, the history of Lung. And I know we're going real long here, so I don't want to linger too long on too many specific areas. Andy, why don't you talk about some of the stuff that you felt important, worth visiting in this interlude here?
Well, it was neat about the typical trying to get the attention of the folks in charge and need to make a name for yourself, but with the huge plot twist that, oh, there could be parahumans in any one of these things. So all of a sudden we think we got the deck stacked in our favor, and not even close. And also, I'm starting to see why Tony is such a fan of Contessa. Her what she did in this was pretty cool. I was just like, wow, she's not even really like moving or anything, and people are just getting busted up. It's pretty pretty spectacular.
Like just embarrassing everybody. It's greatest of ease. I love her.
Pretty much. Yeah.
We know now what happened to Fault Line's crew. All we got was the aftermath. You think back to that interlude where the woman in the fedora had taken care of the Gregor and the rest, and now we get a hands-on view from Lung as to what happened to his crew that he was a part of. And she just
tell me what happened.
she demolishes them, and he triggers.
Yeah. Well, it's wild, it's I just figured he was going to choke on some drugs, and I'm like, oh, well, I wonder what's coming out of this section. I'm like, oh no, trigger vent time. Okay, well, good time for it to happen.
Yeah, you're got a mouth and a
definitely saved his life.
For sure. Yeah,
it did. So Contessa and the doctor head out with their business partners, and we get a bit of a flash forward where Lung fights Leviathan. Absolutely insane.
Yeah, talk about something that I'd like to see on the big screen. I mean, it's like, all right, now that guy's, maybe he can maybe poke him in the toe. Oh, okay, now he can maybe hit him in the knee. Oh, now he's bigger than Leviathan. Okay, now this is impressive.
And Leviathan's only out was to destroy a section of Japan.
Right, yeah. I'm just gonna go back to the water now through this chunk of land right here.
Yeah,
I'm making my own little lake. Bye.
Pretty much, Tony. This had to be right up your alley. You love this kind of stuff.
Yeah. Emperor Lung, max potential. Basically, even though the world around him disappeared into the water, he left the fight saying, I didn't lose.
Yeah. He stood up to an endbringer.
The last one, not even the triumvirate were left at the end. So it was just him and Leviathan toe to toe.
His character is just all about the fight. He's not trying to save people or anything like that. He's just trying to be king of the world, and taking on this big water lizard was a step toward being that. Now we get a flash forward, and then he's been captured by the Yangban. And these are the Chinese parahumans. And they're trying to recruit him force him into their midst to join their group. Andy, we learned that the heroes, after the Leviathan fight, the heroes tried to recruit Lung, and he said, nah, be gone. I ain't got time for y'all.
Yeah. And I get that. I mean, he's all about moving his own ambition forward. So he doesn't want to be just a cog in the wheel and another team player, and being on the hero side, he wouldn't really be able to do that. But there's no honor amongst thieves, right? So if he's with villains, eventually he can, fight his way out or take over the group or whatever he needs to do.
So he says, as we're moving on into this interlude, he's going to agree to their terms just long enough to be able to kill whoever he needs to kill to escape. And that's what he's all about.
Mm-hmm.
And we get a flash forward again. And Tony, we pick up where he's recruiting Bakuda. And boy, she was yanking his chain from day one.
Yeah, Bakuda's pretty cocky, and Lug was like, you know what? I like the cut of your jib.
Yeah, and she's like poking fun of him for the name of the group, and you're not really all that, and okay, I'll join you just for laughs kind of thing. And yeah, okay, fine. All I care about is instilling fear in people. Yeah, she makes the fun of the name, that the Asian bad boys. And Lung says here, a reminder to my enemies of what I've done before and what I could do again. And as I said, he's all about the fight, Andy. As a whole, before we get to the very end of this thing, did you enjoy this deep dive into Lung's character and his journey?
I did. Yeah, it's something that, in a movie situation, you tend to get like a little thumbnail, of and this was, here's the antagonist. You don't know much about him, and then there's this little bit like, oh, this is how it happened. The end, and the big battle, and it's over. So this is much more in depth, and it really rounds out things, as we've seen Wildbow do time and again, where he, makes things much less two-dimensional, gives it a lot of depth and attention. You get more perspective on it. And so I really did enjoy the walk down memory lane with Mr. Lung.
And Tony, as we're heading toward the end of this thing, after the scene with Bakuda, we're in the birdcage. Lung is with Marquis, Panacea, Teacher, and Teacher's trying to get him on his crew, so to speak. This was right before right as the news of Skitters being captured and Alexandria being taken out comes across the television screens. And Lung is biding his time, looking for his next opportunity.
Yeah, Lung, obviously he wants, of course he wants to get out, but he doesn't want to be anybody's tool to get there, and very adamant about he would rather keep his slow growing power than be a thrall to somebody who could make him feel that same feeling he had against Leviathan. He wants to be able to do it all on his own.
Yeah, Tony, Andy, one last thing on this. During the fight, there became a point where his power began to wane. Otherwise, he didn't lose to Leviathan. You could say he drove off Leviathan, and then his power began to subside. His passenger, was there some thing going on there to keep him from truly taking out the Endbringer?
Oh, that's an interesting take on it. Yeah, I guess I could see that as a possibility. I thought of it more as, I forget if it was Legend or Eidolon, but they talked about how he didn't know how fast he could fly.
That was Legend.
Because at a certain point, he started to kind of lose consciousness almost, or at least lose himself. And so to me, I thought it was more analogous to that he was reaching the limits of things, and something made him not want to go beyond that limit. But I could see it the other way too. If there's enough of if this is like a giant crucible to try to see who can come out of it, and the Endbringers are the fire, if you will, the refining fire, then you can't let them be destroyed, or else you don't have that indestructible opponent that's always kind of lurking, the boogeyman, to kind of keep driving the story or driving the narrative. So I can see that happening too.
I like that a lot. I mean, my initial read of that take was that I think he's even, like, whether consciously or subconsciously, sensed that the fight was ending. And like, because we see this build up in the fights, like he starts getting bigger because he's anticipating the fight. They like kind of lay out on it. He's building up, like, oh, the fight's coming. I'm getting bigger, I'm getting stronger. You know, he's in the fight, his power's growing faster and faster and faster. For the end of the fight, it seemed like he sensed like, oh, Leviathan's not really as in it anymore. The power's going down. Like the fight is starting to conclude, and then once Leviathan leaves fully, then it's like, oh, then that's the end of his meter build up for his super his rage meter or whatever you want to call it. It kind of starts going down.
Okay.
And if you have somebody who can basically like bypass it, like, oh, well, what if I can show you how to get infinite rage with your brain? And now what is your actual potential if you can keep that actually going,
Cool. All right. And that brings us to the end of the interlude. Andy, why don't you give me your overall impressions of this arc? It was a lot for us today.
It was, yeah. I guess I didn't see it going the way it kind of went. When Taylor went into PRT, I anticipated something more along the lines of like that scene from Terminator, where Sarah Connor's in there, and then all of a sudden the Terminator shows up and just starts mowing down the place. I figured all of the wrath of the Undersiders would descend on the place, and we'd kind of have a knockdown drag out, and wasn't really sure where it was going to go beyond that. But I didn't expect, Taylor, again, I lose track of it so often. She's this teenager and she's negotiating like she's been doing corporate mergers for 30 years or something, and so I didn't anticipate that at all, but I really enjoyed the way it went. I really liked the way Defiant and Dragon and Miss Militia kind of said, all right, we need to kind of listen to you. This is getting out of hand. And what have you got? We're willing to come to the table. So that was pretty cool. And I like this last interlude about Lung and getting the background on it, and interesting to see where direction that goes.
Tony, you want to add some thoughts on this arc as a whole?
So we just put a pin in that thing with Miss Militia. And so that's at that end there where Taylor was talking to Miss Militia, Defiant, and Dragon. It basically kind of came out where that frustration with Miss Militia, her inaction was an action, and that was the big problem that Taylor had. Because at first, when there was that slight betrayal where Miss Militia disclosed information to Tag, and that was like kind of the first beat, and then the second beat. I forgot what was during the negotiations, where it felt like she didn't really. This was another test, I remember her saying, and then Miss Militia kind of didn't get her back there,
right?
And then our third beat here was like, you did nothing in there, like you kind of let all of this happen. And she's like, my inaction, because I didn't want to support them, but I also don't want to support you. And like her inaction, her inaction was also kind of a catalyst to all of this.
Very cool. All right. And now it's time for Andy to announce his choice for key character of the arc. Whether a hero or villain, cape or civilian, Andy will identify the characters that stood out to him, whether it's for good or ill. Andy, who's your selection and why?
Well, this was a tough one. There are lots of really good people, and lots of people I could have chosen. I felt I really liked Dinah's part in the beginning, and it really got me thinking about how easy it would be for her to give a little bit of a different take, or not to disclose much, and know how people were going to jump, or have a good idea how they were going to jump. And it was just good to see her seeming like she had her life back together somewhat. So thought about her. I liked both Defiant and Dragon, that we kind of saw it when they went to get Taylor at the high school, but they were on the fence and leaning away from where the PRT was, and trying to come up with something better. So that was good. I also like what Taylor did, just amazing attempts at negotiation, and then dropping the hammer when things went sideways, just saying, you know what, I'm done. And I even like the lawyer, as you pointed out a number of times. I thought he did a great job. But all in all, I think the whole thing kind of, the focal point, what things kind of swirled around was Alexandria. Once she showed up, it was just like that last piece of sugar in a super saturated solution, where it just turns it all into something else. And the way she acted, the gambit that she played, it's one of those things where it's somebody who thinks they know more than they really know. And she ended up dying for it. So, and then that led to the whole kind of quote unquote cover up or throwing her under the bus and everything. And Skitter becoming Weaver. So yeah, I'm going to go with Alexandria as the key character of the arc.
Wow.
Well, that's a big one. Tony, you want to comment on that?
Oh yeah, no, I definitely can see that. She definitely was a big reason that this chapter was as impactful for me too. Back when I was first reading it, I would probably have said the same thing. When Taylor did kill Alexandria, I just remember running into my roommate's room and just like, oh my God! Like I was just like popping off. I was like, oh my God, Taylor killed Superman. Like I was sick.
Wow.
That's why I was like, yep, that's it. Like I'm always on her team. Like she took down a top 3 world class power and with bugs.
Team Skitter for life for Tony.
Team
okay.
Skitter forever.
All right. The key character is Alexandria. And with that, folks, we are heading out for now. Tony, thanks for coming in and hanging out with the old guys once again, bud. We appreciate you being here.
Oh, thank you. It was a lot of fun.
And folks, as Andy said, be sure to catch us on Spotify. We'll be with Daniel Radford and his show Stories Across Borders. And also, Daniel will be joining us for Arc 23. We'll have to work on our scheduling for that, so it might be a bit of a delay once again between this arc and that one. But we're excited about the idea of having him with us, and we hope you'll be here for that. And until next time, yeah, take care.
Yeah, thanks everybody. Thanks for the comments and suggestions. Keith and I are still figuring out what comes next once we finally get through Worm. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun. And Tony, again, as Keith said, thanks so much for joining us, and we look forward to having you all join us next time. Until then. Thanks for joining us in this podcast. We hope you'll like, comment, and subscribe. If not, thanks for stopping by anyway, and we'll hope you'll return. Music is by the band YYNOT from their self-titled debut CD. You can find more in the link down below. Catch you later.